Welcome to the Modern Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Giordani. Today, I have a very special guest, Marcel Bonnet with Dwell West Homes. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, Josh. Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for coming over.
Of course. Thanks for having us. So tell us a little driveway pass by of your history, how you got started in the investing world, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I got started in real estate. I was in college, saw that one of our sponsors for the real estate society that I was in at San Diego State was hiring. I applied, took a few months, but they finally hired me. I was a sophomore in college at that time, so I was working whenever. They were really flexible with when I could work. And that company was doing REO asset management. So REO, real estate owned. The banks owned foreclosures. It was 2008, so there was a lot of foreclosures.
That was Atlas, right?
Yeah, Atlas REO up in Solana Beach. They're no longer. But yeah, so I started there. I didn't really even know much about what the foreclosure industry was. It was just really the right place at the right time.
Right.
I was there until 2012, and it was a busy ride. Like, you know, I was the youngest asset manager for at least the first few years. But basically what I did was I managed properties for the banks because they got so many foreclosures, they didn't know what to do with them, and they weren't set up for it. So we would manage a portfolio of property and oversee an agent who would then be our boots on the ground. My portfolio was mainly in Florida. And at my busiest, I had over 400 assets. So, you know, we would have 80 closings a month and just replenish them, like a few houses a day come in our door. And so that really taught me how to look at a pipeline of properties, how to manage a lot of things at once, and how to just constantly be moving things where they needed to be and coordinating. So there I actually met, one of your recent guests, Brian Daly, and then his partner, Patrick. They started a company called REIG, a flipping company.
And that's where we met.
That's where we met. You were working with us there, and you were helping us find houses. I did acquisitions there. So acquisitions is you go out and you find houses for the investor to buy and flip. So I did that from 2012 to 2018. And I went from acquisitions to basically running the flipping department. So it's kind of like the VP of flipping.
Right. And kind of overseeing the other acquisitions people.
Acquisitions, renovations, asset management, everything. So I really learned every aspect of the real estate investing, flipping world in that job. So it was a really, really good experience. And then in 2018, I was burned out. I was like, I'm just gonna do a couple flips on my own. I did. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Am I gonna do this full time?
Right.
So I kind of just started to fall into it. And it was just like, okay, I'm good at this. I know how to do it on my own. And then it just kind of ballooned from there. And that's where I started my company now, Dwell West Homes. And so we do mainly fix and flip. And then we have been buying more and more rental properties as well.
I feel like your start with going from the acquisition side to managing that acquisitions team is taking those positions and overseeing all that to doing your own is probably a very easy transition because you had all the experience going in from REIG was a large company. You guys were doing 70 to 100 flips a year.
Yeah.
Right. So to be able to take all the ins and outs and the systems and the processes to then do your own on your side was probably a very easy setup and transition.
It was definitely a lot easier than somebody who hadn't had that experience. So I was able to learn on somebody else's dime, right? I didn't have to take any courses or coaches or anything like that. I mean, I learned by doing, and I was getting paid to do it.
Right.
It was really challenging at that last company, especially toward the end. But all the challenges paid off in learning how to navigate different things. And so there's always new experiences when you're investing in real estate or new hurdles and weird things that happen during transaction or during a renovation. But yeah, it definitely gave me a leg up in starting my own business.
I think it probably would cut the learning experience down for most people starting there, going to, especially with acquisitions, right? Because I think the biggest thing about the investing side, I think that most people don't realize is it's not about the money, right? It's really about being able to find quality deals.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, I think, about the real estate investing side. Yeah. Managing contractors, it's probably a pain in the ass to do that. But finding deals, good quality deals, I think is probably the hardest part.
The hardest part, because if you get a good quality deal, if you can't buy it, somebody else will. There's a way to capitalize on a good deal. You just got to get that thing in contract and find it. So yeah, that is the number one first thing. Yeah.
So with the inception of Dwell West, how many flips have you guys done since 2018 to now? Do you have?
I would say probably around, so it's like probably around 150, 160.
Nice.
So far.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a big thing. From your experience, like in doing them yourself compared to working with a team, like what are maybe some learning experiences that you've seen along the way versus when you were at REIG?
So I was a bit scarred there just because our team was so big.
Right.
And, for me, I think that that's a really good business model for some. For me, I was really slow in bringing on too many people, but slower than I should have been in the beginning for sure. But again, I think I was just a little burned out. But I think you could do a lot with a little in this business. And so that's been kind of my model as far as, getting the right people and the right processes first, and then not worrying about having so many people and everybody's going to look at it differently, right? You've had other people who do have larger teams, and I think it's great, and they do more business than me and all that. But for me, it's just the lifestyle I wanted to live and the way I wanted to structure my business. I wanted to have a core group of team members and then add on as I needed as the volume grew.
Right.
So I just grow differently than other people. But yeah, for me, that was a big thing I learned from that company was not to get too big too fast and have to the need of we have to find another deal. We have to find another deal. We have to pay off, whatever it was that we have to bring this revenue in for. I want to responsibly structure my finances and my business in a way that I'm not, stressed to buy more houses.
Right.
The last latter part of last year, we slowed down quite a bit.
Right.
And we were able to coast right through because, I don't have a huge overhead with my team. We were able to buy more rental properties. We were able to slow down. We were able to take time to work on our processes. And we had that luxury because, we're frugal with the way we spend our finances in the business. And we don't have more people than we need.
Right. And doing more isn't always better, right? I think with one thing about with you and your team is you guys run leaner, right? Like having a smaller team, your profitability is probably much better compared to someone who is much larger, who has, 20 or 30 employees versus you that has 3, 4?
So we have 4 employees and then two assistants overseas,
right?
VAs. So
right.
Yeah, there's 7 of us.
Right. But that's still profitability wise per deal compared to other people. The margins are probably much better. So even for people who are listening, someone that does 500 deals in the last, few years or does 100 plus a year compared to someone like you that maybe does, 25 to 50, right? A year?
We do about 50 a year.
50 a year? Yeah, 50 a year. I mean, you're probably running much leaner and the profitability is probably still very similar.
Yeah, so I probably left out a year. We probably have done at least 200 flips, to be honest. Yeah, because I was trying to do the math. It's about 50 a year.
Right. And then by yourself, but that's not even including what you manage at REIG and the other companies, right?
No, we were doing a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What made you make that switch, just the burnout, made you make that switch to go solo?
No, I mean, it was kind of like riding a bike with training wheels and your training wheels aren't even touching the ground anymore. It was just time.
Yeah.
I knew I could have left earlier.
Right.
But there were certain things I was getting in order before I left that company. I had a good relationship with them. I wanted to make sure to give them plenty of time. So I give them a few months notice that I was leaving. I helped them hire some replacements. I've always been kind of more of a steady type of, okay, well now this is next and I'm going to go for it. Versus stressing about trying to do it all at once.
Right.
But yeah, it was just time.
Yeah. Did you go and use your own money with your initial first handful of deals that you were doing solo, or did you raise capital right off the bat?
The very first deal I did was with my own money. The very first deal, and I talk about it a lot. It was this house in National City here in San Diego. And the seller just wanted $30,000 because she had gone online and Googled, where can I find the cheapest duplex? She basically searched Zillow duplex 2 units and cheapest, lowest price, sorted by lowest price, and then clicked that and bought that. She bought a duplex in the middle of South Dakota for $30,000.
What?
And so that's all she needed. And so I structured a deal. She had 3 liens on her property. She had a first, a second, and a hero loan. So a first mortgage and then a second mortgage, and then what's a hero loan? It's a it's this weird program where they tack it onto your property taxes.
Right.
It's a horrible program. I would suggest that nobody gets.
It's for
that.
like remodeling your house, like for
energy
windows or
efficiency,
roof or,
and
yeah.
it's a scam in my opinion. But she was paying a lot for that. So basically, what I did was I gave her the 30 grand and took over all those loans, and that's how I was able to afford to close on my first flip. And then I had enough cash to do the remodel. And then once I flipped that, I started to parlay that money a little bit. And
So
then
that was like a creative financing deal.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was what you call subject to,
Right.
but subject to 3 loans.
Right.
And then came in with the cash difference. My second deal was a subject to also.
Interesting.
It was up in Irvine. The sellers were way behind on their mortgage, and I brought them current, took over their loan, and then flipped it as well.
I feel like those are becoming more and more popular. Subject to you're seeing a lot more popularized with popularized, and
I don't know the answer to that question.
yeah. Well, I feel like I see it on social media now. It's being very popularized with how to structure it because rates are much higher than they are, and with people who like even like from the last 2 years with rates being where they
Right.
were. If someone was to have bought in 2 years ago or 3 years ago, their rate's probably 3 or 4%. Where now, like for us to go get a loan on a rental property or even to do like a construction loan for hard money, we're paying a lot more. So to
Yeah.
do subject to makes a lot of sense for someone like us.
For sure. So why don't we explain what subject to is
'Kay.
for your listeners?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
not everybody's going to know what it is.
For sure.
So subject to is where, and you know this, but we'll
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of break it out for everybody. Subject to is where you purchase a home with an existing mortgage on it. And instead of you paying that mortgage off for the seller at closing, they're keeping that open and you're buying it subject to that mortgage. So basically you're just buying that house and taking over their payments to the bank.
Right.
And
And
like
title
you
still
said,
transfers
title
to
still transfers.
your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of trust that needs to happen between the seller and you because they need to trust that you're going to make their payments and not foreclose on the house and mess up their credit because that loan stays in their name.
Sure.
This is different from assuming a loan, right?
Right.
This is purely, it stays in their name. You're not even notifying the bank.
Right.
You're just transferring title and starting to send the check from your account instead.
Right. And then the difference between subject to and owner financing. On owner financing, and then correct me, jump in if I'm incorrect at all. Owner financing is typically when the house is paid off and the seller is doing a loan with you and you guys are structuring how much the interest and down payment and all that stuff would be. So it's between subject to and owner financing, there are two completely different. We're
Right.
talking about creative financing.
Right, yeah. So the seller financing is the seller becomes the lender.
Right.
Usually they don't own anything on the house and you're paying them an interest rate in a term just like you would a bank. They become the bank and you decide on how long that's going to stay open. With subject to, you still are deciding how long are they going to let you keep that open, right? Like
Right.
how long you're going to negotiate with the seller how long they're going to let you keep that loan open.
Right. Until there's a balloon payment or until
Balloon payment,
until you have
or
to refi out of
maybe
them.
I've done subject twos where they're like, okay, you can do it for a year while you flip it,
Mm-hmm.
and so we take it on subject to, and we flip it, and then we pay it off when we go to sell the property.
Right.
So the way we write up the contract is, it's to be paid off upon resale.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of those. The owner financing deals can be structured. I mean, you could still do 30 years subject to. I'm seeing a lot of them are 30 years, right? And they're taking over those existing payments. So it's interesting how that's the creative financing side.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to structure a deal differently.
Now, for the average person, do you think that flipping is profitable for the average person? Like getting started, like if you didn't know anything, like walking into the investing side, right? And you were like, you and Nusha just had normal jobs and all of that. You were like, let's go flip our first house. What do you think? What are some problems that you think you'd run into?
I think the first problem you're going to run into, and what we discussed, like the most important thing is finding the right deal, right? To just walk off the streets and go on to the internet and find a fixer and make the price, be able to get it for the price that you need it, is going to be really hard, be difficult, right? Because you don't have a lot of relationships in the real estate industry. You're going to need to make sure you know how to underwrite a deal, how you know how to budget for that deal. So, you're competing with a lot of people who are making offers on this thing that know what they're doing. So I don't say it's impossible, but be very careful.
Right.
Yeah, like if you're winning this contract and there's a bunch of offers on it, be wary of why. Like, are you overpaying? I'm not saying you are, but
You probably are.
You probably are.
Yeah. I mean, a perfect example is like our Redlands deal right now, right? Like all of the offers are literally like within a few $1,000s of each
Yeah.
other, but they're all experienced investors.
Right.
Right. So for an inexperienced someone to come in that was, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 higher, right? They're looking at something completely different than what everyone else that's been experienced is looking at.
Right. I think that's a good example, right? We're looking at a deal in Redlands. We thought it could be worth about 30 grand higher than what all the local investors are saying. So
Right.
it's even us who are experienced investors are easy. When you go into a neighborhood you're not that familiar with, you got to be really careful.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at first I was like, oh, we're getting a great deal on this thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, maybe not. Maybe we're like
being
at
right about
market.
right.
Yeah. Maybe at market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it would be tough. Like going in, like you see those HGTV shows, and like for the average person that are going in that want to get into flipping, which a ton of people, I'm sure you get approached all the time, and so do I, about people asking like how do they get involved or how do they start doing
Right.
it with you that
Right.
know nothing about
Right.
like real estate or like the investing side. Maybe they've bought in their first house or they have a rental property, but with flipping, I feel like that would be so challenging to go in, putting your own money into a deal and being able to underwrite it, knowing what construction costs, and you forget about, how much commissions and closing costs and all these other fees that are associated with it. So when you're doing the math on how much you're going to potentially make, it's going to look much different after you're done with it.
Yeah. I would say if you're just starting out in flipping, a good way is to maybe join a group, a mastermind. There are paid ones. There are also local ones that you don't have to pay for. But you're going to want to learn from other people in their processes and how they underwrite a deal and what to look for and the caveats. Because, the big thing is buying the house, but then it's also renovating it, right? And finding the right contractor. And, there's thousands of contractors, but a lot of them don't know how to work within the budgets of a flip investor, right? Because they're trying to get things done for a lower cost.
Right.
And then also be of a certain quality so that way you're not getting it done for so cheap that, you're going to have problems and you're going to be selling a bad product. So there's just so many different things that could go wrong
I know.
in a flip.
Yep.
And so I'd really, really advise somebody to find a coach or find a mastermind or do a lot of research, join online forums and things to at least first start to get exposure to it and then learn from other people's mistakes.
Right.
And then start asking around, start asking for good contractors, start asking for, agents who bring investor type properties. Another way to get into this business is, wholesaling. So, and that's how a pretty common natural progression, people either start off in like acquisitions for another investor like I did, or they start off in wholesaling, or maybe they start off acquisitions and they go to wholesaling, then they go to flipping.
Right.
But wholesaling is, you're basically getting a house under contract and you're getting it at a margin that allows you to sell it to another investor who is then going to flip it.
Right.
And so then you'll just take that margin, that fee as a wholesale fee at the closing. And it's a great way to get into investing. You don't really need any money to do it. You don't take on really much risk. I mean, you're basically getting a house in contract, and then you should be negotiating a house. You should be negotiating that contract to where it actually makes sense. Like
Right.
what I hate is getting all these wholesale deals where it's like
Makes zero sense.
these numbers don't make any sense. These
Right.
are going to burn people really quickly. They're not going to want to spend time looking at your deals.
They won't even open your email anymore.
No.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emails that I don't open.
Yeah.
So basically, you can get that house under contract if you get it at a good margin, and then sell it to another investor in town who is going to pay more for that contract because they're going to then go and value add and then flip it. So that's a great way to get some profit without actually having to put in any money.
Yeah, and with zero, I mean, theoretically, it's zero money. Like you may have to put like an earnest money deposit, right? For example, like that would probably be the only money. But as soon as the other buyer comes in place and they put the money in, right, you can get your refund back of your earnest money. So technically not zero money, but like very risk off because you're not closing on the house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a very easy way to start. I mean, that definitely leads me into like how we started working together. And I don't think I would be where I'm at today. So thank you. Without you and the process. But even now, like with all, I think I did the math the other day. We're at 18 closed together. And then we have 3 in escrow right now together, start this year. But But I'm still like, I called you on the Vista house and I was still uncomfortable to like close on that deal myself and keep it. And it was like to deal with the construction process and all that. So like me and being where I'm at, even though I feel like, I'm experienced with finding deals, and even though they're good deals, I'm still nervous to close and keep them for the construction side of it, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And then obviously, as you know, the Vista house, we realized the budget went up by like 30 or 40,000 like after we closed on it.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, I would say don't be so worried that you don't move forward on something, but some of your worries are legitimate, right?
Right.
Like when we actually got in there, did the inspections, I mean, the sewer's messed up.
Right.
The drywall was saturated.
Yeah.
It's like, it was a mess, right? It's a big project, and we just have the system to take it on, right? We have the contractors, we have the designer, we have all the pieces of the puzzle. I have a really talented project manager who knows their stuff. So that really helps a lot with me having confidence to take on a deal like that. Like I don't even think twice to take on a deal like that. But it's just a matter of making sure you have enough margin to take on the headache. Right. It's got to be worth it.
Well, I think for me with that, because I was looking at it as like a long-term hold. And I, with all of our stuff, when we do it together, like I have the confidence in closing on it. Like I would never be worried if the budget changed or like, remember the first house that I actually invested in, was a cottage. Remember you called me and there was a foundation crack. And I think like the first thing that I thought about, I was like, oh great. Like there goes the budget. Like I'm going to lose money on this thing. Right. And it was like 4,000 or 3,000. It wasn't anything like of concern.
I just wanted to let you know.
Right, of course.
I see these all the time.
But like, I think when we're doing them together, it's very stress-free, but it was stressful to think about taking on something all by myself and not managing it. Cause I have my strengths with like my role and like our partnership when we do stuff, right? Like, I think for me, I'm good with my like relationships. I'm good at finding deals. And then once we do and we have what's done, then I don't have to worry about it because that's like on the team to handle the rest of it. Like, and then I can go back and keep doing and going to get more deals and repeat the process over and over again.
Well, but, I think you bring up a couple really good points. One is that a good partnership is so you bring up a couple good points. A good partnership is kind of hard to find. But once you do, making sure that you have the right roles is so important. Like, because what you just said, I could get this locked up and then I can move on to the next one and you're handling the rest. Right. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't have to worry about finding the deal because he's handling that and I'm just going to worry about the rest. Right. And so that's why these partnerships are really successful in that, everybody knows what they're good at. Right. And so if you were to get in and start saying, well, I want to pick out the flooring and I want to like manage the contractor, one, it would pull from your time and your focus from doing acquisitions. And two, it's probably not what you're best at, right?
No, yeah.
And so what that parlays into is also running a team. So if you're going to start flipping or you want to build a flipping business or any business, right? Right. You got to hire for the things you're not good at or that you shouldn't be doing. And so I don't have all the construction knowledge. I did it for a long time. But there's somebody who's better, and that's why I hired Ryan, my project manager. He's better at construction than I am. Right. And so I'd rather him focus on that, and I'm still doing the acquisitions on our team for the internal stuff or when I'm working with you and kind of underwriting the deal. But eventually I'll probably have somebody replace that aspect of at least some of what I'm doing on the acquisitions of going out and scouting new deals so I can focus on relationships like yours and just focus primarily on, underwriting and managing the team. Right. But overall, like a successful company is going to require you to fit those certain roles. In a successful flipping company, you're going to need somebody who knows the construction. You're going to need somebody who is good at managing the pipeline. I have somebody on my team, Nay, who manages the entire pipeline from the acquisitions to the disposition. She negotiates the offers on our behalf. And that really, that structure really came from those REO days. I was an asset manager in the REOs and I did that on behalf of the bank. So, okay, let me just replicate that and do it on the flipping business and fill that position with somebody who's going to manage on my behalf. Right. And so, it's all about focusing on what you're good at. For sure. And if you're really good at finding deals, that's really what you should be focusing on and then solve for everything else. Right. Yeah, and I think that's where I've
kind of figured out like my niche in like our role together.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, like, sure, you can get distracted with like shiny objects of like, oh, I want to be involved in these other aspects. But really, it's like you said, like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why not just focus on the things that you're good at?
Right.
And especially if you're good at the thing that is the most profitable, but also I think like for me, it's the most fun.
Yeah.
Like going and building relationships and like agents and, you know, direct seller stuff and all of that side of it. Like to me, it's fun. And it's almost, I've made it a game, right? With some like with calls and with meetings and things that come from it.
And some people that terrifies them to do a call or to meet with a seller or to meet with an agent. And if you love it, then focus on it.
Right.
Because there's some people who are not good at that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love that too. I love the hunt. I love negotiating. I love building relationships. I love the challenge of like, how do we make this deal work? I like getting creative and I like providing a solution to a seller, to an agent. Hey, you know, I understand that these numbers don't work here, but what if we did the subject to, or what if we did the seller carry?
Right.
And educating an agent who may not even know anything about that.
Right.
And then showing them now they have another tool in their belt
Right.
when they meet with a seller. So it's really fun to work with people that, you know, you guys can grow together or you can kind of teach each other. It's been fun working with you too. I mean, especially like from the beginning, you know, it was, you know, early on, it was, you know, we both kind of were just starting out when we met each other.
Yeah.
And so I know you went more the realtor path at first, and then I was more on the acquisition side, and then
and then title.
Teach you what I got. Yeah.
Yeah, and then now full circle. Obviously, I'm still in title, but now being able to like I mean, the first deal that we did together was the one with Melinda, and you had brought me in on it, and I was like, no one's ever like mentioned this to me. Or like told me how that I can go in on a deal or get some type of equity partnership in it. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, like this happens all the time. Like, why don't I just keep doing this? And now looking back, like it's just crazy how 2.5 years can completely change. And now it's like, you know, income wise and everything else, like it's just been a fun process.
Yeah, no, it could be, you can make money, but have fun doing it.
For sure. But I think a lot of people like that even brings up another point. Like I'm sure people approach you all the time. Like I mentioned, like, coming to you and wanting your help on how do they start doing it, right? And I think I'm a good example of the only reason why you really put the time in is because I brought you value. And a deal is very valuable to someone who's investing, right? And for someone to bring a deal to someone like you and continue to do that, all of a sudden that can create something like what we have where it becomes like a partnership. I'm not a partner with Dual West, but you know, like with our individual deals.
But it really is like a partnership, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty about real estate is that we can partner on, you know, hey, let's partner on this deal. Like, or not even just saying you and I, but in general, like somebody can form a partnership on one deal, and if they decide they don't like being partners, well, at least it was that one deal, not the entire business that they have to, you know, uplift and tear apart. So, but no, it has been great. And yeah, I mean, I saw value and I saw potential. So that's the other thing. Like you were hungry and you wanted to learn how to do acquisitions. And I saw, okay, I know that it'll be a lot of my time and focus now. But if I can build you up, obviously selfishly, it's going to pay off too. I mean, but you know, there's also something very rewarding in seeing you grow and seeing other people on my team grow. And it's not only about the money. It's like, you know, if you can help other people and allow them to kind of stumble along their way, but then give them a little bit of guidance and then see like how what you're saying or what you're doing or what you're teaching them is actually paying off. It's really cool. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm forever grateful for you. You definitely have, like over the last, it's literally been 2 years. This is our going on 3rd year. Like it's been life-changing, like having for sure a complete other side of the income. Right. And then like just what we're doing this quarter will probably surpass what we've done like last year together.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect, right?
Definitely a ton that we're working on right now, which is crazy and
well, the pleasure's all mine.
Thank you. Let's go into some rentals. So I know you got pretty creative with a few deals recently with some that you guys added ADUs to. I know, like, for example, like we bring up Vista again, like that house for me, I was going to be negative like $2,000 a month with where interest rates are. So it didn't make sense in terms of like a cash flow perspective, but it did in terms of like depreciation and equity. But you and I were kind of talking about where you are with your rental portfolio. And I think that a lot of people would be, I think that was really cool what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So on the rental side, you know, we've always loved anything that has multi-units on it. Right. So it's been really hard for us to make sense of a rental on like a single family. I mean, there's probably been a few, like most recently we had one in Spring Valley that might have worked as a rental actually. But
the one that we had?
The one, the Spring Valley, the Pecos. But single family homes in California, are really, out of state, but here in San Diego, the purchase prices are so high, even with the high rents, it's really tough to make them cash flow. And so where we've done well is like on the 2 to 4 units, and then now we're looking at like 8-unit buildings here in San Diego, and then out of state as well. But yeah, I mean, so let's get into that, because fix and flip is great for cash, but it's taxed horribly. It's taxed as ordinary income when you flip a house because you're owning it for less than a year. If you own a house for over a year, you can do it as capital gains. Right. But anything less than a year, you're paying full, you know, ordinary income on your tax. Right. Or excuse me, ordinary tax on your income.
Yeah, with flipping, I feel like it's income. Like we say investing, like when we're talking about flipping, but really it's income, like wholesaling and flipping.
Income. Yeah, it's like a commission, you know. And so when you're renting or you're buying a rental, there's so many more advantages to owning a rental. One is you're going to get to ride that appreciation over the years. And so that's how you really build long-term wealth. With the flipping, you're just making that quick buck, right? So what we've been starting to realize, especially when we get our tax bill every year, is that it's so much more advantageous if you can hold on to some of these things. And then not only do you get the cash flow from the rental, but you also get to do depreciation to write off against income and show losses. Like I said, you can sell for, if you wanted to sell for a profit, you're going to be paying, you know, long-term capital gains rather than the ordinary income. Right. But really what you should be doing is a 1031 exchange. Right. So, you know, you take a 1031 exchange, you buy a rental property, keep it for a couple of years, and you can exchange it up into something of the equal price or more. And so that's a great way to start building your portfolio and not having to pay taxes on any of the gain. You're deferring it all. Right. And then the goal is you just basically, you die with all your rental properties and then whoever inherits it they get to step up on that basis, and they don't even have to pay taxes, so they can sell it or keep renting it at that point. So.
And the great thing is too, is you can do it, you can transfer some of those into REITs as well. So like for someone, like remember the guy in Oceanside that we were trying to buy, what is the 6 houses from?
It was like a Delaware Trust or something.
Yeah. Where they can transfer, he can 1031 exchange all of his real estate assets into a 1031 into a REIT, where that REIT pays him actual cash flow. Right. Every single month, where he doesn't have to manage the properties.
Doesn't do anything at all.
Yeah, a lot of it, they can be invested into medical facilities, like commercial buildings. It could be multifamily. It could be apartment complexes. So it's cool how, like with 1031, you don't necessarily just have to buy real estate. You can also buy into a REIT, which can pay you cash flow. So for people who are like, you know, like the guy that we were talking to was like 90 years old. He's like, I don't want to buy any more real estate. Like, what am I going to do with it? And I'm like, well, if you transfer it into this REIT, you can then pass this on to your next of kin. They can get cash flow for the rest of their life, because I think we would have ended up paying like $4 million for all 6 of his houses that he had in Oceanside. Yeah. So it would have worked out great.
Yeah, it's an amazing. Real estate is amazing in the way that it's treated by the IRS. Like I can't think of any other investment or business to where you can have so many advantages in making money in your investments. Like you can't depreciate stock, you know, so it's an amazing way to have cash flow and tax advantage and long-term wealth in the appreciation of that house.
That's what I realized with day trading, is that with stocks, you can only take a max loss of $3,000 per year. Like that's it. So
I didn't even know that.
So if you lose money,
I suck at stocks.
Yeah. So. I learned that I sucked at stocks. And it's depressing and stressful, and it wasn't funny. But if let's say you take a loss for the year and you were a day trader, you can only write off $3,000. So let's say you lost $100,000. you're only writing off $3,000. If you lost 100 grand with real estate, you can write off the full 100,000
Right.
or whatever it was for the depreciation. So it's interesting when people compare stocks and real estate because I feel like it's totally different.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm all about diversifying. We
For
have
sure.
investment in stocks, but I don't manage them.
Yeah.
I leave it to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right.
I'll focus on the real estate side of it.
Yeah. I mean, same now at this point. I'm not doing any more day trading.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, it is. A little too stressful.
Yeah.
How many units do you guys have now, personally?
I think we have about like 25 or so, but we're adding on to a lot of them right now. So, for instance, we have one project. I actually have that with another partner over near like the Balboa Park area, and we're taking a duplex. And because of the zoning laws in that neighborhood, we're able to split that into 6 units, and then we're adding 2 more. So while we only have 2 units there right now, that will eventually be 8. We have one we just bought in Oceanside. We have plans that we're ready to submit for a couple of ADUs there. So like these new ADU laws are allowing you to really easily add onto your portfolio.
Yeah, with San Diego doing the high density stuff.
Yeah. So, we've got a bunch in permit status right now.
And the great thing with ADUs is that you're almost at that 1% rule. Like most ADUs are costing like 200 grand, right?
Right.
To build like a normal ADU.
Right.
But you're able to rent it out for $2,000 a month, which is great, right? Because that's why I think a lot of people look at a state. Like when I was telling you about Cincinnati, like a lot of these places were 150 grand. Maybe I had to put $70,000 into them, but then they'd rent out for $2,300. So I'm making my 10% on these deals, but it's out of state and I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
Right. And then I don't
Right.
have to want to manage it. We're here.
Yeah.
You can have a better asset. It's
Yeah.
not out of state. You can deal with great appreciation versus somewhere in the Midwest that most of those places
Steady, yeah.
don't deal with
Yeah.
crazy appreciation like we do.
Yeah, so you brought up the 1% rule, and that 1% is like a rule of thumb. If you can get like 1% your rent of purchase price, right? And I love that rule. If I can get that, I'll always buy something in San Diego.
Right.
And we have actually. When we bought something just recently, we were able to do that, which is it's kind of unheard of, but it is if you can find the right deal, if you can find the right value add potential. So like we had these 2 1-bedrooms, we were able to add bedrooms into the existing footprint. We were able to then get the rent that we needed to make it not only cash flow, but do that 1%. So I think we paid 1.1 and we're getting exactly 11 grand on that whole 4-plex. And so
great.
it was a really good one. But if that was your only rule in San Diego, you're probably going to limit yourself from other good
Yeah,
deals.
right.
So you should be looking at everything. If it cash flows and it makes sense for you at that time, you should probably buy it.
Right. And you guys are looking at a state too with multifamily, right? With bigger buildings.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
because Nusha manages, or
My wife Nusha, yeah. She does all the underwriting. She does a lot of the multifamily stuff, and then I kind of step in on the acquisition side. So
Gotcha.
we just put out an LOI yesterday.
Nice.
It got rejected. But
LOI is a letter of
intent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a 12 unit, and we really like Knoxville, Tennessee,
Right.
and we're looking at Nashville, Knoxville.
What's the price points for like a 12 unit?
We put an offer in at $80,000 a door, so it was like a $950, I think it was.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
And is like a 1% rule out there?
That one would have been,
Okay.
but like I said, they rejected our offer.
Oh, okay.
We're not that far off, so
Right.
we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. What are your goals moving forward? Like next 5 years? Like what do you guys want to do in terms of like a company and personally? I know you were talking about like having a COO, so maybe that means spending more time with the kids or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think because of how my position at my last company, I would like to replicate what I did at my last company. So basically somebody who's like me, who can take a look at the pipeline, take a look at the renovations, and make a lot of those higher level decisions. I will probably never be 100% out of the business. I really love being a part of it, but there are certain aspects that I do need to eventually step back so we could do more of the rentals and we can do more of the apartments. But that's really what we want to get into. We want to get more of the multifamily space and hold on to more of these buildings long term and just have that cash flow that's working for us when we're sleeping.
Right.
So,
Of course. I think that's the ultimate goal for everyone.
yeah.
Yeah. A little retirement plan that you can do in 5 years if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I think it's very possible.
Yeah.
If you focus on the right things.
Yeah. It's awesome. What how do you balance like the family? You have 2 kids now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance all that with getting phone calls from employees and agents and dealing with issues and all that stuff? I feel like from my perspective, because I probably talk on the phone at least either once a day or every other day, at least communicate somehow. But I actually appreciate the fact that you're sometimes like, it's me, so I know it's different. I'm sure you like a lot of our stuff isn't like necessary, like right off the bat. And I'm very like low maintenance, but I know that you're spending time with the kids and you're good about not like answering your phone and like being present at those times.
Yeah.
But I feel like that could be challenging. I have a hard time with it.
That could be very challenging. And I'm not the best at always being present. I basically, when I walk in the door, I have to turn my phone off because if not, it's just this thing. Right. It's like Lord of the Rings thing that's just calling me, and I want to check in, and it's like, it's a bad habit. You kind of have to decompress, and I'm not always the best at this, honestly. Like, sometimes I come home and everything, my mind's still racing, and I haven't even I haven't figured out everything that's going on in my head because I've been so busy during the day that now that things are starting to calm down, these other things are popping into my head that I had forgotten about and like stressing me out about that when I'm trying to be with the kids or the wife, you know? So it's very intentional. You have to be really intentional about that. So what I do that works for me is sometimes what I'm trying to do every day is I just come home and I'll turn off my phone and leave it on the kitchen counter off. Right. Not even on airplane mode, just off from, like 5:30 to 7:30. And that way I have those 2 hours that I'm just completely unplugged. Right. I've been working less at night. I've been trying to like really block my schedule to where, I'm not really working at night as much, but inevitably sometimes it spills over. Right. Even my wife, we both will be sitting there with our laptops out and just trying to catch up on things or catch up on household things that we need. But overall, what really helps is having a great team, including my wife, because there's a lot of things she handles for my business that I wouldn't get around to, or even for our personal affairs, finances. She even goes so far as like creates like our financial tracker, our family balance sheet, so we know our net worth or what investments we have or what properties we own, so that way if we want to move things around we can, or we can provide that to a bank. She handles like all of our insurance for everything. She handles our investment accounts, everything like that. So that's really, really helpful. And then, like I said, I have my team structure for the business, and that they're all been, we've been really busy the last 2 months with new deals and everything, and they've really taken it really well. I've been really proud of them. So, I've been throwing a lot at them, and it's been stressing our system, but it's good to see it working. Right.
And taking on those workloads, like for them, it's important because right now, I feel like over the last like few months, it hasn't been as busy as what it was like the years previous. Right. So to be able to ramp that up is great. Yeah, I find it hard. I don't have kids, but I find it really challenging. But I appreciate, like, that's why I brought you up, because you turn on your notifications are turned off, and a lot of times we'll just rush off the phone, which is totally fine. But I have such a hard time with it, which is why I think we do like our date nights so often. Yeah. Because we're at home and
your date nights with your fiance, not with me.
Yeah. Not our date nights. Yeah. Date nights with the fiance is like our way to connect, because I'm not looking at my phone at dinner. Like we're able to like catch up. But if we're at home, it's like I accidentally I'll get a phone call, or I'll get a text, or I'll get an email, and I'll go into my office and I'll go work for a little bit. And then all of a sudden I'm doing all these other things, and I'm like, it's 8 p.m. and I haven't even said hello, or like we haven't had dinner or whatever. And I feel I'm trying to get better at it, but I think that's why we go to dinner so often now. Yeah. Is because that's our way to disconnect, but connect together as well.
You need that. You need that 100%. Because especially with my wife and I, when she's working in the business, imagine that. Like, we're talking about it like all the time. Right. And so we'll be in bed and be like, hey, did we get any applicants for 3rd Street yet for the rental? Or like, and I'm like, wait, we need to set some boundaries here, because we can't be just talking about that stuff all the time. Right. So yeah, I think date nights are important. I think unplugging is really important. And a lot of it can wait, right? So yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, it's definitely very important. Don't want to.
Did we say it's important?
Yeah, it's important. Excuse me. What we will wrap up. Last question. What predictions on 2023? Where do you see the market with where interest rates are, with the Fed? I think we get CPI next Tuesday. Seems like obviously the stock market is super volatile right now. Yeah. And then with rates going up and down like a full 0.25%, 0.5%, week by week in different directions.
I just think we're kind of like bouncing around I try not to look at things so micro now. I've learned like week to week, like the CPI report coming out. I don't want to like freak out. Okay, we're not going to buy any more houses because it missed expectations. At this point, I look at our market in San Diego and I look at, okay, there's a lot of people who want to live here. There's not barely any houses on the market. Even, like when I first started in the business, there was way more inventory than there is today. And they were like record lows. So I look at our market and I look at, okay, I think in the long term, we're going to do fine. Obviously, you can't always look at long term when you're flipping because you're not holding on for long term. So that's where we hedge our risk, and it's forced us into something. One of my goals is owning more rental properties. But over the last 6 months, we bought more rental properties because it was too volatile to flip. I mean, it was so hard to underwrite a deal. I think things are calming down a little bit, honestly.
I think so too,
the market's starting to feel hot again right now. It's the very time that we're recording this, and that could change really quickly. But I don't know. I think if you're conservative and you buy in good neighborhoods and you buy at the right price points and maybe take on some high-end stuff, but my rule is like, maybe I'll take 1 or 2 at a time. I don't want to take on like 3 or 4 high-end deals, because don't invest in something that if you lose, you're going to lose it all. It's just not worth it. Like, yeah, you might make a big win if you win, but like if you lose, then what was the point? That's why I like some of the deals that we've done recently. A single family house under $400,000 in San Diego, that's really hard to lose. Or around, the other one was at $400,000. So buy deals like that, and it's easier said than done because it's not like they're just out there waiting, especially with the slow inventory.
Of course, yeah.
I would say I never try to predict a market because I'm probably always wrong. But from the way we're approaching this year, we're buying, as much as we can right now in the beginning of the year. Just seasonally too, it's the best time to buy because they're all going on the market spring, summer, and then we'll reevaluate in quarter 2 and see what's going on. But we always get way more conservative like toward the end of the summer anyway, because of holidays and whatnot. But it's weird times, man. It's like it's so hard to predict anything, and real estate has always been a slow moving indicator, but it moved quick.
Last year moved really quick.
It moved quick up and it moved quick down. Like I had 2 different deals, and both of them I was in escrow at 1.4 with buyers, and ended up selling one at 1.15 and the other at 1.175. Like that's a $250,000 drop, And it was quick.
Was that like a 2-month period? Yeah, 2-month period. Yeah, it was great. Like when we were doing the 2 in Oceanside that we had together, I think I was nervous during that. We bought those. I think we got a great deal on those houses because we were taking on tenants. But during that time, I was like what you brought up, focusing on like the macro economy versus micro. Although during that time we did have a pretty significant dip and then a raise in interest rates, so it definitely made me nervous. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to even look at anything for the next like 4 months until October. I think September, October is when I started feeling a little bit more comfortable because I thought things kind of settled out. There wasn't as much panic. Obviously that's when we bought the Spring Valley house, which turned out great. And then now it seems like, I agree, the market's heating up a little bit.
Well, and like on those, right, a lot of what we bought the second half last year had multiple exit strategies. So
for sure,
the one we were talking about, Fire Mountain, the 2 houses, like if I had to rent that out, it would have rented fine. And I probably wouldn't have regretted renting it out. And the same with those 2 houses you were just talking about, where we were worried about what is it going to resell for. We got them so low that if we had to rent them out, it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
And Spring Valley, when we bought that, I think we closed on, that was October of last year. That was like, they were nervous to even, like everyone was nervous to even buy at that point. I think
and it's not like we were the only people looking at it. No. Multiple people offered on that, and
they backed out and they were higher than us. And we single family house for $375,000.
That's unheard of. So,
but it was definitely an interesting time to start buying. But it was, I feel much more confident now. But we'll see. I mean, every month is different. So cool, man. All right. Well, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime.
Love it.
All right.